What challenges do secondary teachers face nowadays? What solutions can we employ to meet these challenges effectively? My name's Rob Dean. I'm a teacher trainer and I've taught English to teenagers. I'd like to welcome you to Hand in Hand with Teachers. Real challenges, real solutions. This time we're going to talk about engagement, or to be more precise, the challenge of making teenage students feel engaged and motivated during your lessons. I'm sure at times that we've all experienced a classroom like this, where students are reluctant to participate in learning activities. A scenario like this can not only create classroom management and potential discipline problems, but as negativity usually travels faster than positivity, it can also affect others, and in so doing make life difficult for the rest of the class. More seriously, a negative attitude like this can become permanent as learners go on to develop a hatred for the subject and fail to make progress. So where does this problem come from, and how can we deal with it effectively? I suggest that there are 4 areas to consider here. The first concerns something known as affect and attitude. In short, the way the teacher relates to the members of the class. Sometimes students feel that the teacher doesn't really care about them, treats the class as one homogeneous entity, and takes no interest in their individual backgrounds and interests. Here's what I do to try to avoid the problem before it even happens. First of all, on a simple level, get to know and use the students' names as quickly and as often as possible. Memorize one fact about each member of the class. This could be a hobby, an achievement, an experience, and refer to it in the lessons. Showing interest like this demonstrates to the students that they're valued as individuals and not just faceless members of a large group. On top of this, students always value professionalism from the teacher, a sense of fairness and consistency in managing the class. The second reason for a lack of engagement from students concerns topics. I was once asked by a teacher for advice on how to get his 14-year-old English learners enthusiastic about Shakespeare. Well, students will not express enthusiasm for something that they cannot already relate to in some way in their everyday lives. So I suggested that Shakespeare could possibly wait until the students were older and had more predisposition towards dealing with topics such as foreign literature. Here's what I do to ensure the right kind of activities in class. Firstly, I try to ensure that there is a strong connection between the topics we use in the classroom and the contexts and situations that students are already interested in outside school. The right scenarios will spark an emotional response and a desire to express feelings and opinions on the topic. I've also found that when we are developing language skills, the process is far more effective when we begin with the known, a familiar and interesting topic, and use that as a springboard to move into the new, in our case, English language. The next of the 4 areas to consider concerns the activities we use in class. Traditional activities in the language classroom of the past had a depressing predictability about them. From my own experience of learning French at school, most of the time was spent either listening to a lecture from the teacher or simply copying information down from the blackboard. This lack of variety, this lack of personalization, interactivity, or enjoyment soon caused boredom to set in. Fortunately, methodology has moved on. Here's what I do to ensure engagement through the right choice of activities. Firstly, I ensure that there is a clear sense of purpose in the activities I use. I need to be able to answer the question, why are we doing this? Students have every right to know why we do what we do and what the point is of the activities we use. Secondly, I strive to personalise activities wherever possible. Language is a personal thing, and we use it for all kinds of purposes that matter to ourselves. We use language to express opinions, to share information, to entertain each other, to solve problems, and of course, to make and maintain friendships. I would suggest that if this is what we do with language in our everyday lives beyond the classroom, then we need to train our students to be able to do this while they are still in the classroom. Here we have 3 examples of this principle put into practice. The 3 activities each provide practice of a specific area of language, but by including the word you or your in the instructions, we immediately make the student the centre of the activity. Personalisation also has the advantage of making language more memorable. Thirdly, I ensure a high degree of interactivity in the classroom. Of course, there will be times when we ask the students to work silently alone, but this will not be sustainable for a whole lesson. Students need a frequent change of energy levels to maintain interest in the lesson. And I would also suggest that solitary grammar exercises are more suitable for homework, where the student is generally alone. Collaborative communication activities, on the other hand, are obviously more successful in the classroom, where the students are together. Here's an example of what I mean. Firstly, from new challenges. I find that group and pair work activities such as this have many advantages beyond simply giving the students the chance to apply the language they have learned in a speaking task. They also provide a safe environment in which to do so, an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, to experiment, to try again. It's often said that 2 brains are better than 1, and collaborative work enables learners to support one another with content ideas as well as the language needed to achieve the goal of the speaking activity. So far, we've looked at affect and attitude, we've looked at topics, and we've looked at activities as key factors in dealing with the challenge of engaging students. The final area I would like to focus on is agency. In other words, allowing students to have some influence on the lesson and the learning process. As we've already mentioned, each student is an individual with their own thoughts, their own feelings and ideas, sometimes good ideas. It's when these good ideas are ignored that students can become frustrated and disengaged. Here's what I do to allow students to have some influence in the learning process. Firstly, I try to allow learners to have an element of control over certain aspects of the running of the class. An example of this could be to allow students to take the role of the teacher from time to time. For instance, instead of the teacher nominating students to answer questions during feedback on an exercise, allowing the students to nominate each other puts power into their hands. Giving choices is also a good way of allowing students to have an element of control. For example, choice plays a vital role in the very important area of learner training, such as here, where students are encouraged to think about how they could best memorise vocabulary depending on their own learning style. So let's sum up. Remember, for students to be engaged, we talked about 4 important areas. Firstly, affect and attitude, taking an interest in our learners and ensuring fairness and consistency at all times. Secondly, the right topics, bringing into the classroom the contexts that students enjoy in their everyday lives. Thirdly, the right activities, with purpose, personalisation, interactivity and variety. And finally, agency, allowing our students an element of involvement and choice in the way the classroom is run and in the way they learn. Thank you very much for listening.